Salvete discipuli, hodie spectamus lecturam septem, capitis septimi. 3rd-Declension nouns. Hodie discemus primum vocabula capitis septem, deinde grammaticam. Masculine, feminine, neuter nouns of the 3rd-Declension. Primum discemus verba vocabulorum capitis septem. In hoc capite sunt duo verba, audeo, neco. Primum verbum. Audeo, audere, ausus sum. Audete esse stulti, canet Alfredus mirabilis. Qui significat audeo? Ultimum verbum. Neco, necare, necavi, necatum. Brutus Cassiusque et alii senatores Romani cogitabant, si Caesarem non necabimus, Caesar tyrannus erit, et populus Romanus liber non erit. Quid significat neco? Videte pictoram in hac pictora senatores Romani Iulium Caesarem necant. Quid significat neco? Nunc discemus nomina vocabulorum capitis septem. In hoc capite sunt multa nomina, plurima nomina, septendecim nomina. Amor, carmen, civitas, corpus, homo, labor, littera, mos, nomen, pax, regina, rex, tempus, terra, uxor, virgo, virtus. Primum nomen. Amor amoris. Venus erat dea amoris, et Mars erat deus belli. Romani antiqui hos deos adorabant. Quid significat amoris? Ecce Venus dea amoris Romana. Proximum nomen. Carmen, carminis. Est nomen nutrum genus. Poeta Graeca, cui nomen erat Sappho, multa carmina de amore scribebat, sed pauca remanent. Quid significat carmen? Ecce Sappho multa carmina de amore scribebat. Quid significat carmen? Proximum nomen. Civitas, civitatis. Si in civitatibus foederatis Americae perpetui habitatis, cives Americani esse debetis. Quid significat civitas? Civitates foederatae Americanae. Proximum nomen. Corpus corporis. Ecce corpora humana. Partes corporis hominum sunt multae. Exempli gratia, caput et manus pedesque. Quid significat corpus? Ecce corpora humana. Ecce corpora masculina, ecce corpus masculinum, ecce corpus femininum. Ecce caput, ecce pedes, ecce manus. Quid significat corpus? Proximum nomen. Homo hominis. Partes corporis hominum sunt multae. Exempli gratia, caput et manus pedesque. Quid significat homo? ecce homo, ecce homines. Qui significat nomen. Proximum nomen. Labor, laboris. Totus labor et nullum otium, Ioannem in puerum stolidum mutabunt. Qui significat labor. Totus labor et nullum otium, Ioannem, ecce Ioannis, in puerum stolidum mutabunt. Qui significat nomen. Proximum nomen, mos moris. Cicero cogitabat, si moribus antiquis studebimus, mores bonus habebimus. Qui significat mos. Ecce Cicero, orator Romanus. Proximum nomen, nomen, nominis. Viri Romani tria nomina habebant. Nomina Ciceronis erant Marcus, Tullius, Cicero. Ecce tria nomina Ciceronis. Marcus, Tullius, Cicero. Sunt nomina Ciceronis. Quid significat nomen? Proximum nomen, pax, pacis. Cogitate omnes populos vitam in pace agentes, canebat Ioannes Lenun. Quid significat pax? Proximum nomen, regina reginae. Rex avarus cum regina cenat. Quanta cena regem avarum satiabit? Ecce rex avarus, ecce regina, ecce multa alimenta. Quid significat regina? Proximum nomen, rex regis. Rex avarus cum regina cenat. Quanta cena regem avarum satiabit? Quid significat rex? Ecce rex, ecce regina. Proximum nomen, tempus temporis. Medica est domina temporis. Per tempus spatiumque in machina sua navigat. Quid significat tempus? Ecce medica, ecce machina. Machina temporalis. Quid significat tempus? Proximum nomen, terra, terrae. In principio creavit Deus caelum et terram, liber Genesios in Biblia Hebraea dicit. Quid significat terra? Ecce terra, etiam, quoque. Quid significat terra? Proximum nomen, uxor, uxoris. Livia Drusilla erat prima imperatrix Romana, et uxor primi imperatoris Romani Caesaris Augusti. Quid significat uxor? Ecce Livia. Livia erat uxor Augusti. Quid significat uxor? Proximum nomen, Virgo Virginis. Virgines vestales, sacerdotes Romanae, flammam perpetuam in templo Deae vestae conservabant. Quid significat Virgo? Ecce virgines vestales, ecce flamma vestales, ecce templum vestale. Quid significat Virgo? Ultimum nomen. Viri in carminibus Homeri Virgilique magna cum virtute et fortitudine pugnant. quid significat virtus. Ecce viri in carminibus Homeri Virgilique, qui magna cum virtute et fortitudine pugnant, Achilles, Ulixes, Aeneas, etc. Et ceteri, quid significat virtus. Bene. Nunc discemus adjectiva capitis septem. In hoc capite est solum unum adjectivum, novus. Primum et ultimum adjectivum, novus, nova, novum. Nonne odorum librorum novorum amas. Quid significat novus. Nunc discemus alias partes loquendi vocabulorum capitis septem. Sunt duo prepositiones, post, sub. Prima praepositio, post, plus accusativum casum. Post laborem vir domum venit, et cum uxore sua sedet, televisionemque spectat. Quid significat post? Post laborem vir, ecce vir, domum venit, vir est domi, et cum uxore, ecce uxor, sua, sedet, vir sedet, televisionemque spectat, vir televisionem spectat. Quid significat post laborem. Ultima praepositio, sub. Feles nigra sub tabulam currit, feles bruna sub tabula sedet. Quid significat sub. Ecce feles nigra sub tabulam currit. Okay, cum motu plus casum accusativum. Sed feles bruna sub tabula sedet. Feles bruna sub tabula sedet. Okay, sine motu. Okay, cum motu, sine motu. Accusativum, ablativum. Bene. Okay, now let's learn the new thing in this chapter. We are entering the third declension. So this chapter will introduce us to third declension nouns. So we already know first and second declension nouns, and we know that in the first declension there are masculine and feminine nouns, and in the second declension there are masculine and neuter nouns, though also the words for trees are feminine, like quercus rubra. Well, in the third declension, there are examples of nouns from all three genders, as you saw in the vocab part of this talk. Okay, so let's start with the masculine nouns. Okay, and we'll, for comparison, look at a second declension masculine noun alongside it. So let's compare tyrannus to rex, a tyrant to a king. Okay, getting into some ancient political philosophy here. Okay, so these are the second masculine case endings we've come to know and love. Okay, so we don't have to go through these right now. Let's look at rex regis. Okay, so remember that the hallmark of a particular declension is the case ending of the genitive singular. In every third declension noun, the case ending will be a short is. So rex regis. Okay, just like it's tyranny, the long I, in the second masculine. Okay, so short is, third declension in the genitive, the second form. Another thing you'll notice with a lot of third declension nouns is that the nominative singular is going to be kind of a wild card. Okay, you're not going to really know what to do in terms of adding case endings just from the nominative singular form. A lot of them end in X, a lot of them end in a lot of other things. So what you actually have to go to do to find the stem of a third declension noun is to go again to that genitive singular, that second form in the dictionary entry, and then you'll see the stem. Okay? So the stem of this noun is reg, R-E-G, okay, whatever precedes the is. And then from there, you write reg, 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 reg for all the rest, with the exception of the vocative singular, because in the third declension, the vocative singular and the nominative singular will always be identical, singular and plural, as you see here. So that'll save you some time. Okay? So now that we've gone from rex to regis, okay, we can then do reg, 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 etc., and then add the rest of our case endings. Okay, so regis is of the king, regi, to or for the king in the dative, so the long I. Okay. King regem in the accusative ends in an em. So notice the pattern here. A lot of accusative singulars you have seen end in the letter M. Okay, it's just with the E here. Okay, so in the third declension, you're going to see a lot of I's and E's. Okay, just as in the second declension, you see a lot of U's and O's. Okay, the ablative singular is a short E. Okay, like so. In the plural, okay, things get a little more regular. Okay, the nominative plural is reges, a long es. Well, guess what? So is the accusative plural. Okay, and therefore also the also the vocative plural. Okay. The genitive plural can be a little tricky because it's going to look a lot like, hey, say tyrannum here, which is the accusative singular of the second declension, but it's actually genitive plural, regum, of the kings. And if you think about it, tyrannorum, of the tyrants, also ends in um, so at least that um is there. Okay. Finally, the dative, and therefore ablative plural, because in every declension the dative and ablative plural are identical, ends in ibus. Okay, a very distinct case ending, okay, that we'll see in other cases. We'll see this in the fourth and fifth declension as well. Okay, so to or for the kings, okay, dative plural, therefore also ablative plural will be regibus. Okay, so it's a new set of case endings, but you'll see that they follow similar patterns and there's a bit of regularity to rely on. Okay. All right, let's look at the feminine. One thing you'll notice is that the third declension masculine and feminine have identical case endings. Identical case endings. Okay, but they're just different genders. Okay, the first word we saw was rex, regis, which naturally is a masculine noun because the word for queen instead of king is regina, which is first feminine. So here's a nice review of the first feminine. Okay, well, let's look at a third feminine noun, imperatrix, empress. Okay, you'll see that like rex, regis, it also ends in an X in the nominative singular. However, that is not the stem. The stem, once again, is in the genitive singular form. In this case, the stem ends in a C, imperatric. Okay, and that'll be our stem for most of the rest, except for the vocative singular. Okay, but otherwise, you'll notice that even though this is a feminine third declension noun, it's still a third declension noun, so it's going to have the same case endings as the masculine. Is, em, es, ibus, es, ibus. Okay, and again, the vocatives will be the same as the nominatives. Okay. And finally, the neuter. Okay, and the neuter, as in the second declension, does things differently than the masculine or feminine of the third declension. However, if you know the pattern for the second masculine, then that'll really help you out for the second neuter. It'll really help you out for the third neuter. Okay, so let's look at a second neuter. Okay, remember donum doni for gift. Okay, in the second neuter. Okay, you learned essentially that in the genitive, dative, and ablative, it's the same as the rest of the second declension. Okay, but in the nominative, accusative, and vocative, okay, it's different. Okay, singular and plural, it's the same. So donum, donum, donum. Okay, and then in the plural, okay, all neuter nouns of any declension in the nominative, accusative, or vocative plural will end in a short A. And guess what? Let's skip over to corpus corporis, the word for body here, and you'll notice that in the nominative, accusative, and vocative singular, it all ends in short A, whereas the rest of the case endings of the genitive, dative, and ablative are the same as the third declension masculine and feminine. Now, let's look at the singular now. This is where things were going to get a little tricky because there's a lot of third declension neuter nouns whose nominative singular ends in a US, and you're like, oh God, shouldn't that be corpus corpi, like a second declension masculine? Well, no. Again, you have to memorize each noun and vocab by its first two forms, nominative and genitive singular, because that's what's going to give you the stem. And you'll notice that it's not corpus corpi, it's corpus corporis. Okay, suddenly the stem looks quite different from the first form. However, it's corpus corporis, it ends in that short is, therefore it is third declension. Okay, and again, like any neuter noun, it will have the genitive, dative, and ablative be the same as the rest of the declensions, genders, but the nominative, accusative, and vocative will be identical. Okay, so there's no separate form for the accusative. All right, so trying to point out as many helpful patterns as possible so that you can learn these new sets of forms more quickly. Okay. Here's just another set of examples just for the sake of completeness. Okay, you can see third masculine, feminine, and neuter side by side in order for you to spot both the similarities and the differences. Okay, again, rely on the genitive singular, that second form, for your stem, which sometimes will be identical to the first, but you'll tack on an is, okay, the word for labor or work, the word for wife, the word for name, okay, but the rest will follow the patterns that we discussed, okay? So that's it. Please submit your responses, and I'll see you next time. Waleti discipuli. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about adjectives. It might be useful to pair these with adjectives. Okay, as we discussed with 2-on-2 adjectives, 2-on-2 adjectives, they decline in either the second or first declension, depending on the gender. Well, 2-on-2 adjectives do not decline in the third declension. Okay, so when they're paired with third declension nouns, they will necessarily have case endings that look different from the case endings of the noun. Okay, however, they will still match in the three ways that adjectives have to match their noun: in gender, number, and case. Okay, so labor novus, new work. Okay, this is masculine, nominative singular, and so this 2-on-2 adjective will decline in the second masculine, nominative singular. Okay, let's look at uxori novai, to or for the new wife. Okay, dative, feminine, singular, dative, feminine, singular, because a 2-on-2 will decline in the first declension as to modify a feminine noun. Okay, let's look at noem novum. Okay, this is neuter. Okay, and it means new name in the accusative singular, right? And so we have noem declining in the second declension neuter, and it's modifying a third declension noun. Okay, so start getting used to the fact that adjectives will not necessarily match in appearance, but they will certainly match in gender, case, and number, which is where it counts. Okay, now we're done. Okay, sorry for the false ending there. Okay, see you next time. Waleti discipuli.